Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. The ongoing feud between Claressa Shields and Amanda Serrano that seems to have quelled and blown over overnight. A Twitter user that goes by the name Inevitable D-Block said, who does great numbers on viewers in their next fight? Amanda Serrano or Claressa Shields? Who's got the numbers on their next fight clear?
Amanda.
Putting it in the form of a question is generous to say the least. It'll be Amanda because, well, nobody knows those girls that Claressa fights most of the time, thus nobody's paying attention. Amanda Serrano herself responded to the post by saying, I'm in no competition with the champ, she's a star in her own right, I'm building my own legacy and trying to elevate the game. Viewership brings the entire game up, that's the goal. I wish you the best, go get them champ, you're the GOAT.
That was nice.
But that's the point. Kill her with kindness, kill her with grace, and remind the public of who you are versus who she is.
Somebody with the impulse control and petulance of a child.
Responding to Amanda's response, Claressa said, my girl, I admire you. And you know if I can add anything to my style, I'd add your big knockout power. You are awesome. 12 3-minute rounds, you KO Katie Taylor. I rewatched the fight and called it a draw. After so clearly saying she scored the fight for Katie, oh, now she scored it a draw.
Because she's a phony.
So somebody might look at Claressa's response and say, well, that's pretty disingenuous. You were just having a go at her. And before that, you went around her, you jumped into Cameron Giles' direct messages to have a go at her and Katie.
Well, but it's all good now that you're getting the attention that you wanted.
So somebody leaves me a comment on one of my videos discussing this whole thing, saying, the reality here is there is a clear bias against the GOAT on this channel. Ring IQ is glossing over the fact that it wasn't boxing fans watching.
Who said it was?
It was Joe Soaps watching for the Tyson spectacle.
Don't you see this is what they do? This is what Claressa does. Try to handicap the argument by moving the goalpost and arguing about something else entirely that no one said. I never said it was conventional boxing fans watching that fight, and neither did Most Valuable Promotions. All they said was, it was the most watched fight because during the time of the live broadcast, they reached 74 million households. That makes it the most watched women's boxing match. All this other stuff you're adding on, you're just adding on to make Claressa feel better. To make it seem like she's got a point when she doesn't. Now what he highlighted, that those weren't actually boxing fans watching that fight, well, isn't that the point? To reach outside the world of boxing, to get to that casual audience that doesn't otherwise watch boxing, let alone women's boxing. A rising tide lifts all boats. That's the logic.
When an audience that size takes in a women's boxing match, that makes it the most watched by default, irrespective of why they were originally there and who was in the main event.
All besides the point.
And all good, so long as glory hog, attention-starved Claressa gets what she was after. And that's attention, because she's now getting it, albeit for the wrong reasons. So she's moving off, going after Amanda Serrano and the viewing figures for this fight, to now going after Cameron Giles, who exposed her.
This is her way of venturing out of the world of boxing. You can't do it with a fight, since most people don't watch your fights.
She'll settle for getting attention by arguing with celebrities instead. She's having a go at Cameron now for allegedly...
How will this woman be remembered?
Having his chain stolen by rapper True Life some years ago, and I think she's got her wires crossed because I could have swore it was Jim Jones that got robbed by True Life. It doesn't matter because we know what the intention is.
She posted this to her social media.
Can expect Cameron Giles, a resident Harlemite with a sharp tongue, to take this lying down. He seems to have responded by saying, Claressa, if you're really a man, just say that. You're always trying to fight with men. Well, You got what you asked for, then get a knife.
Then went to get a knife.
Bye, bitch.
What's he talking about?
He's talking about that leaked sparring footage where some Eastern European guy that looks like Johnny Bravo knocked her on her ass. She was knocked on her ass by Joe Nobody, Joe Blow, got embarrassed, ran to her car, and went to get a knife so she could try to knife the guy.
You remember that was the story a few months ago.
She quickly became the laughing stock of the boxing world, but that entire thing was eclipsed by her feud with Alicia Baumgartner. That helped to make people forget and move on to a new subject. Cameron continued, Instagram headquarters just called and said, Flea, you can't do this. You have to stop. You're a bully, and we can't have that on here. Do it on your show Monday morning. I said, say less. But if he dies, he dies. I'm sorry. Y'all called me. I'm being watched.
This is what she wanted.
Attention by any means, even if it's for the wrong reasons, because she's attention starved.
A back and forth with Cameron Giles gets her attention.
And that's what this has become. Claressa has since responded saying, man, Cameron, your punk ass is always arguing with women. But I'll tell you what, I've never ran and never lost.
Arguing with women. You're the one that direct messaged him. You're just mad he exposed you.
You ran and let your mans get jumped at Rucker Park. True Life didn't only take your chain, but he punched you in the face. Crazy. 50 Cent gave you all the smoke, and you tapped out. Dudes diss you, punch you in the face, take your chain, and you're back to being cool with them. You are the softest man I ever met. And your hosting partner, the one True Life took your chain, you are the definition of it. You can't beat him, join him. Punk, now bye, little girl.
So she must figure that she can tap into a new audience outside of the world of boxing, the hip-hop audience, the music audience, by having a feud with somebody who's known in the music industry.
Attention by any means, that's what it is. Though whoever said all publicity is good publicity was lying, when the only thing you're known for...
Since you're not actually known for your fights, people often don't know who the hell you're fighting.
She's becoming more synonymous with public blow-ups and meltdowns and feuds with her contemporaries inside of boxing. Now she's venturing to outside of boxing. You want to start something up with Cameron when you're the one who involved him, when you direct messaged him.
You brought him into it. Now you're mad because he exposed you?
You should be mad at how poorly you handled all of this. You should be mad at yourself.
Oh, no, she's blameless in the eyes of the boxing community at large. She's a goat.
The greedy, wishy-washy, overbearing ass.
Train wreck.
I don't even think she realizes that the people in boxing that don't like her, a lot of them, are going easy on her by just sticking to the boxing and criticizing the boxing aspects of all of this. It can get worse.
If you want it to get worse, if you want to poke the bear, disrespecting a grown man,
because it is just like Cameron said. She's always trying to have it out with guys. I'd beat Keith Thurman. I'd beat Triple G just to get knocked on your ass by some nobody, have the footage leaked, and get embarrassed by a Latvian Johnny Bravo.
with a record of 6-1.
She's torn between who she is underneath and how she wants to be seen, how she wants to be received, because you can't be both. You can't be this overbearing and simultaneously be beloved and respected and revered.
You have to choose. You can play the game for career advancement, or you can stay true to yourself, stay who you are, and stay one of the most hated fixtures in all of boxing.
Being hated wouldn't be so bad if you were actually able to turn over a profit from it, but you don't.
You're a heel for the sake of being a heel.
Trying to tap into an audience outside of boxing when you've yet to tap into the audience in boxing.
To make real money.
Stay true to yourself, if that helps you sleep at night.
It makes you feel real.
In men's super middleweight news, Caleb Plant revives rivalry with Edgar Berlanga, called him out via social media, which is customary in this modern day and age.
Digital media, digital entertainment, and digital wars.
Caleb Plant has reignited his rivalry with Edgar Berlanga, taking to social media yesterday to call out the Puerto Rican super middleweight. Plant 32 stopped Trevor McCumbee in one of 2024's most thrilling bouts.
Most thrilling bouts.
You think you're overselling it a little bit? Who wrote this article?
Guy who goes by the name Lucas Cattell.
You know, he stopped Trevor McCumbee in the 9th at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, his only appearance in the ring this year. Berlanga, 27, fought twice, including a 12-round UD decision loss to Canelo Alvarez. The two have a history of trading barbs. At the kickoff press conference for the Alvarez versus Berlanga card, Berlanga mocked Caleb Plant for being stopped by Alvarez. In response, Alvarez even told Plant, who was in the crowd, that he would defeat Berlanga for him. Plant fought Macumbi on the undercard.
I heard a rumor a couple of weeks ago that they were now trying to make a fight between that same Trevor Macumbi and Edgar Berlanga for his big ring return next year, presumably in Puerto Rico. I like that fight.
But I also heard a separate rumor that he might be facing Gabe Rosado, seasoned journeyman Gabriel Rosado, also in his big ring return. I am okay with either of those fights.
En route to a Caleb Plant showdown,
Caleb Plant, who added fuel to the fire by posting an image on social media that read, Plant versus Berlanga. The Photoshop image depicted Plant landing a punch on Berlanga and celebrating while Berlanga appears on the canvas with a referee counting. Plant captioned the post, Edgar Berlanga, you'll say everyone's name but mine. Plant previously trolled Berlanga by purchasing the domain name edgarberlanga.com, which he used to sell merchandise in the lead up to his last fight. Plant, a Nashville native, now training in Vegas, holds a record of 23-2 with 14 KOs. Berlanga, based in Florida, boasts a record of 22-1 with 17 KOs. Arguably the bigger puncher of the two, Edgar Berlanga, though not the better boxer.
this is the kind of fight that Edgar should have had before he fought Canelo, to prepare him.
It's not what he wanted, though. He didn't want to roll the dice with the other guys at the weight, because if he does, he may not make it to the Canelo Alvarez fight, which he did. And now that he's popped that cherry, you have the rest of the division to contend with. And I like this fight. I feel like the American boxing scene needs it, in a manner of speaking. The American boxing scene did not have a big year this year when you think about what fights were centered around America. Now, there were big fights in the sport on the international scene, say Fury versus Usyk.
Big fight.
Joshua versus Dubois.
Big fight.
Artur Beterbiev versus Dmitry Bivol.
Big fight.
Those were all big fights with big legacy and big money, big everything, but not a single one of them happened in America and didn't involve any American fighters. As far as America and the biggest fight that it saw here on U.S. soil, it's got to be the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight, what many are describing as a farce fight, a circus, not a bona fide boxing match.
But that was the biggest fight that happened on U.S. soil, and arguably the biggest boxing event of the year. It was. But what does that say about the American boxing scene, that that's the biggest fight that happened here?
We know it wasn't Gervonta Davis versus Frank Martin. That didn't move the needle. Canelo fought Jaime Munguia and did good numbers on pay-per-view, and he fought Edgar Berlanga. That did decent numbers too, but those were hardly the biggest fights of the year.
They weren't.
Now, Terence Crawford fought Israel Madrimov, and that was a good card overall. Good main event, but that was hardly the biggest fight of the year. Some fights happened. Some things did take place in America.
Perhaps not the ones that needed to, though.
No, the biggest fight that happened on U.S. soil, if you even want to call it a fight, was Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. So boxing in the boxing sense, and not just the circus sense, the spectacle sense, in the coming year, American boxing needs to do better. And it can start with an Edgar Berlanga versus Caleb Plant fight, because we know they don't like each other, so there's backstory there. We've seen them before, we're both familiar with these fighters, and it's an even enough contest that you do want to see who wins. It's not a foregone conclusion that Edgar Berlanga wins, and it's not a foregone conclusion that Caleb wins, even though some think it might be.
It's not.
Caleb Plant is seen by many as the better boxer, the better nuts and bolts boxer, more defensively sound, while you could argue that Edgar is the better physical specimen, the harder hitter, the tougher guy. That's why he was able to go the distance with Canelo where Caleb could not.
Caleb got knocked out. Edgar didn't.
Stylistically, it is a fight that favors Caleb Plant. Caleb would be the pure boxer in all of this, and Edgar Berlanga would be the boxer puncher and the limited boxer puncher, because he doesn't compete at a very high level with that base style. Pure boxers have a tactical edge over boxer punchers.
What's the edge?
The boxer punchers alternate between the boxing and the punching, but against a pure boxer who's so defensively minded, they don't get many opportunities to get off hard counters and meaty punches. That stifles their momentum.
Can't get anything going.
It's harder to, because that pure boxer isn't offering you much. Isn't offering you much to work with, to work off. The caveat between Caleb and Edgar is that even though Caleb has the right base style for the job, he has a notoriously poor engine. As the mid-rounds progress, he starts to slow down. His output starts to slow down. That's the window of opportunity for Edgar to go in there and land some hard shots. And the question is, will Edgar actually have the ring savvy, the ring IQ, to capitalize off of that in the mid to late rounds, to get at Caleb Plant and take him out? Because Caleb Plant, to his credit, while Canelo knocked him out, David Benavidez didn't, and David Benavidez applies a lot more pressure in a fight than Edgar Berlanga does. So if Caleb was able to go the distance with a David Benavidez, who's to say he can't do the same thing or better with Edgar Berlanga?
He might.
And I do wonder how the bookies would price this fight. Who would be the betting favorite going in? Would it be Caleb? Would it be Edgar? Who would you pick to win that fight?
And where would it happen?
Under what banner? Would it be the PBC banner or the Matchroom banner? You know, Edgar crossed over to the PBC for the Canelo fight, but, well, that's for Canelo.
Obviously, Caleb Plant is not Canelo.
Caleb Plant, still a PBC fighter. On the PBC side of things, I feel like there's really only one fight keeping him there. A potential Jermall Charlo fight. That while Edgar Berlanga is making his ring return at some point next year against either Trevor McCumbee or maybe Gabriel Rosado, Caleb might keep busy with Jermall. But after that, there's not much reason to stay on the island. That the biggest fights for Caleb would be elsewhere.
Not just the Berlanga fight, a Diego Pacheco fight. Those are both at Matchroom, a Jaime Munguia fight. That one would be at Top Rank.
And Caleb Plant does not represent such a great financial value that all of those fighters would have to bend the knee and acquiesce to crossing the street to fight him. No, he's a good fighter and he's a known name, but don't overplay your hand. Those are opportunities for you just as much as they're opportunities for them. You might have to be the one that plays ball.
Set your price and make it good.
But I feel like in this situation, it might be Caleb that has to jump ship. It might be Caleb that has to cross the street, because who can promote those fights better? When you think about an Edgar Berlanga fight,
He's with Matchroom.
Matchroom can promote Berlanga versus Plant better than PBC on Amazon can. Remember, Gervonta Davis himself was complaining about the lack of promotion for his only fight this year against Frank Martin. He said the promotion was dog shit. So when I think about that, and I think about this, and who can promote this fight better, I think Matchroom can promote this fight better than the PBC can.
Crossing the street for any fighter is a risk. So you have to evaluate the opponent and whether or not it's worth it. Edgar Berlanga is hardly the most dangerous guy at 168. The Caleb Plant?
It's not the riskiest fight. So you might cross the street for this guy on the premise that, yeah, crossing the street is a risk, but this guy's limited. This guy's beatable, and this fight is worth something.
I figure there's at least one more fight keeping Caleb Plant on PBC Island. But after that, it's slim pickings, and he might go elsewhere.
He should. The biggest fights for him after that will involve other fighters that are on other sides of the street. That's reality.